Marcus Wellington returned to London with his mind spinning. The flight back from Scotland had been quiet, with Camilla lost in thought, and her staff members maintaining professional silence. But Marcus knew that everything had changed during those few hours in the Scottish countryside. Now, sitting in his flat 3 days later, he was still trying to process what he had learned. Rosalind Parker Bowles was alive. She had been living in secret for 30 years. And the implications for the royal family were staggering. His secure phone buzzed. The caller ID showed his supervisor's number. "Wellington," he answered. "Marcus, I need you to come in immediately. We have a situation." 20 minutes later, Marcus was sitting in a secure conference room at Scotland Yard's Royal Protection Headquarters. Across from him sat Deputy Assistant Commissioner Patricia Reynolds, one of the most senior officers in Royal Protection Services. "Marcus," she began without preamble, "I need you to tell me everything about the Scotland trip." Marcus felt his heart rate increase. Had word of what he learned somehow leaked out? "Ma'am, I'm not sure what you mean." "The unscheduled flight on Tuesday. The Queen Consort's private business in Scotland. I need a full report." Marcus carefully considered his response. He had given his word to Camilla about confidentiality, but he also had obligations to his superiors. "Ma'am, the Queen Consort asked for privacy regarding personal matters. I maintained security throughout the trip." "Marcus, I'm going to be direct with you. We've received intelligence that suggests the trip to Scotland may have been related to matters of national security importance." "What kind of intelligence?" Reynolds slid a file across the table. 3 days ago, the same day as your trip, our monitoring systems detected unusual activity in genealogy databases. Someone with significant resources has been searching for information about deceased members of aristocratic families. Marcus opened the file. Inside were printouts of database searches, all focused on families connected to the royal family through marriage or historical relationships. His eyes immediately went to one name, Rosalind Cubitt. "The searches were sophisticated," Reynolds continued. "Professional-level research, using multiple access points and advanced search techniques. This wasn't casual family tree research." Marcus studied the documents. Someone had been looking specifically for death records, burial information, and financial records related to Camilla's mother. The searches had been thorough and systematic. "Do we know who was conducting these searches?" "Not yet, but the techniques suggest either professional journalists or private investigators, possibly both working together." Marcus felt a chill. If professional researchers were actively looking into Rosalind's death, how long before they discovered the truth? "Ma'am, what exactly are you asking me to do?" "I'm asking you to tell me whether the Queen Consort's trip to Scotland was related to these searches. Did she go there because someone is investigating her family history?" Marcus realized he was at a crossroads. He could maintain his promise of confidentiality and potentially leave his supervisors unprepared for a massive scandal. Or he could reveal what he knew and help them prepare for crisis management. "Ma'am, I need to speak with the Queen Consort before I can provide any additional information." Reynolds studied his face carefully. "Marcus, in 15 years of working together, you've never refused to provide a full debrief. What's different about this situation?" "This situation involves personal family matters that go beyond normal security concerns. Personal family matters that require database searches by professional investigators." Marcus remained silent. Reynolds leaned back in her chair, clearly frustrated. "Very well. I'm giving you 24 hours to speak with the Queen Consort and determine what information can be shared. But, Marcus, if this becomes a public scandal without proper preparation, it could damage both the monarchy and your career." Marcus left the meeting feeling the weight of impossible choices. He needed to contact Camilla immediately. The secure communication to Clarence House was answered within minutes. Camilla's private secretary informed Marcus that the Queen Consort would see him that afternoon. When Marcus arrived at Clarence House, he was immediately struck by the tension in the air. Staff members moved with unusual urgency, and there were more security personnel present than normal. Camilla received him in her private study, a comfortable room lined with books and family photographs. As soon as the door closed behind them, she spoke. "Inspector, I assume this visit is related to the database searches." Marcus was surprised. "You know about them? We've been monitoring such activities for years. But the recent searches are more sophisticated than usual." Your Majesty, my supervisors are asking questions about our trip to Scotland. They suspect it was connected to these searches. Camilla moved to the window overlooking the garden. And what have you told them? Nothing yet. But I've been given 24 hours to determine what information can be shared. I see. Camilla was quiet for several moments. Inspector, what would you recommend? Your Majesty, I think we need to consider the possibility that your mother's secret is about to be exposed whether we like it or not. Professional investigators with significant resources are looking specifically at her death records. How long do you think we have? Based on the sophistication of the searches? Days, possibly weeks. Certainly not months. Camilla turned back to face him. Then, we need to accelerate our planning. Planning. Inspector, my mother, and I have been discussing this situation since Tuesday. We've decided that you were right. It's better to control this revelation than to have it forced upon us. Marcus felt relief and terror in equal measure. What do you need from me? I need you to help coordinate with your superiors. We're going to reveal the truth, but we need to do it properly. Over the next hour, Camilla outlined a plan that was breathtaking in its scope and complexity. They would need to coordinate with multiple government departments, legal experts, constitutional scholars, and media specialists. The first step would be consulting with the cabinet secretary about the constitutional implications. The prime minister would need to be briefed. The Archbishop of Canterbury would need to provide guidance on the religious aspects of the situation. Your Majesty, Marcus said when she finished explaining, this is going to be one of the biggest royal revelations in modern history. I know, but it's time. Marcus left Clarence House with a list of tasks and contacts. The next phase would require delicate coordination between multiple agencies and departments. His first call was to Deputy Assistant Commissioner Reynolds. Ma'am, I need to schedule a meeting with the Cabinet Secretary. The Queen Consort has authorized me to brief senior officials on matters of constitutional importance. Constitutional importance? Marcus, what exactly did you learn in Scotland? Something that could affect the line of succession and the legitimacy of recent royal marriages. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I'll make the call. 2 hours later, Marcus found himself in one of the most secure conference rooms in Whitehall. Present were the Cabinet Secretary, the Deputy Assistant Commissioner, a representative from the Attorney General's office, and a constitutional law expert from Oxford University. Gentlemen, Marcus began, what I'm about to tell you has been one of the most closely guarded secrets in modern royal history. He began with the basic facts. Rosalind Parker Bowles was alive. She had been living in Scotland under an assumed identity for 30 years. The official story of her death in 1994 was a carefully constructed fiction. The reactions around the table ranged from shock to disbelief to immediate concern about the implications. Inspector, the Cabinet Secretary said slowly, are you telling us that the Queen Consort's mother faked her own death? Not exactly faked, sir. More accurately, she withdrew from public life and allowed people to assume she had died. Official records were quietly adjusted to support that assumption. By whom? That's still being determined, sir. The constitutional law expert leaned forward. If Mrs. Parker Bowles is alive, there could be significant legal implications. Property inheritance, tax obligations, insurance fraud. Those issues are being researched, sir. The Attorney General's representative spoke up. More importantly, why was this deception necessary? What was so sensitive that it required a 30-year charade? Marcus had been dreading this question. Sir, there were concerns about bloodline connections that could have affected the legitimacy of the marriage between the current king and Queen Consort. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implications immediately. Are you saying they're too closely related? The Cabinet Secretary asked. I'm saying there were historical family connections that could have complicated their marriage under Church of England law. The Oxford professor pulled out his phone and began making notes. This could require extensive genealogical research to determine the exact nature of the relationship. Sir, that research has already been conducted privately. The connections are real but not necessarily disqualifying under modern interpretations of church law. Then, why maintain the deception? Because in 1994, when the connections were first discovered, the interpretation might have been different. The political climate was different. The risks were considered too great. Marcus spent the next 2 hours answering questions and explaining the implications as he understood them. By the end of the meeting, everyone agreed that this situation required the highest level of government attention. "Inspector," the cabinet secretary said as the meeting concluded, "I need you to understand the gravity of this situation. If not handled properly, this could destabilize the monarchy at a critical time." "Yes, sir." The Queen Consort understands that completely. What does she propose to do? She wants to reveal the truth voluntarily, on her own terms, with full government coordination. As soon as proper preparations can be made. The cabinet secretary nodded slowly. "Very well. I'll brief the Prime Minister tonight. We'll need to establish a crisis management team immediately." As Marcus left Whitehall, he realized that events were now moving beyond anyone's control. The secret that had been maintained for 30 years was about to become public knowledge. His phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Inspector Wellington, we need to meet. I have information about Rosalind Parker Bowles that you need to see. Tonight, 8 p.m., the Red Lion Pub, Westminster. Come alone." Marcus stared at the message. How did someone unknown have his personal number? How did they know about his involvement with Rosalind? And what information could they possibly have? He called the number back, but it went directly to voicemail. No greeting, just a beep. Marcus found himself facing another impossible choice. Meet with an unknown contact who claimed to have sensitive information, or ignore the message and possibly miss crucial intelligence. He decided to take the risk. The Red Lion was a traditional pub near Parliament, often frequented by civil servants and politicians. When Marcus arrived at 8 o'clock, the place was crowded with the usual after-work crowd. He ordered a pint and found a corner table where he could observe the room. At exactly 8:15, a woman approached his table. She was in her 50s, professionally dressed, with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to authority. She carried a briefcase and moved with purpose. "Inspector Wellington?" she asked quietly. "Yes. And you are?" "Dr. Sarah Mitchell. I'm a forensic genealogist. May I sit?" Marcus gestured to the chair across from him. Dr. Mitchell sat down and immediately pulled out her phone, activating what appeared to be a signal-blocking app. "Inspector, what I'm about to tell you could change everything you think you know about the Parker Bowles family." "I'm listening." Dr. Mitchell opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. 3 months ago, I was hired by a major newspaper to investigate inconsistencies in aristocratic death records. My research led me to Rosalind Parker Bowles. Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What did you find?" "I found that every piece of evidence for her death in 1994 is either missing or fabricated." Dr. Mitchell spread several documents across the table. Death certificates, burial records, probate filings. As Marcus examined them, he could see what she meant. The documents were inconsistent, with different dates, conflicting information, and signatures that didn't match other official records. "More importantly," Dr. Mitchell continued, "I found evidence that she's been living under a different identity for the past 30 years. She produced a photograph taken with a telephoto lens. It showed a woman working in a garden outside a stone cottage. Even from a distance, Marcus could recognize Rosalind. Where did you get this?" "I've been conducting surveillance in the Scottish Highlands for the past month. That photograph was taken 2 weeks ago." Marcus realized that Dr. Mitchell had been getting close to the truth independent of any official investigation. "What do you plan to do with this information?" "That depends on you, Inspector." "On me. I know you accompanied the Queen Consort to Scotland 3 days ago. I know you visited that cottage. I know you met with Mrs. Parker Bowles." Marcus felt exposed and vulnerable. This woman had been watching his movements without his knowledge. "Dr. Mitchell, what do you want?" "I want the truth. And I want to know why the British government has been covering up the fact that a member of the royal family faked her death." "What makes you think the government was involved?" Dr. Mitchell pulled out another set of documents. "Because altering official death records requires access to government databases. Creating a new identity requires cooperation from multiple agencies. Maintaining this deception for 30 years requires ongoing support from very high levels." Marcus studied the evidence she had assembled. It was comprehensive and damning. Dr. Mitchell had essentially recreated the entire conspiracy from the outside. "Dr. Mitchell, this information could cause significant damage to the monarchy and the government. I'm aware of that, which is why I'm talking to you instead of publishing it immediately. What do you propose?" I propose we work together to reveal the truth in a responsible way. I get my story, the government gets to manage the crisis, and the public gets the truth they deserve. Marcus realized that Dr. Mitchell was offering exactly what the government needed, a way to control the narrative while still revealing the truth. I'll need to discuss this with my superiors. You have 24 hours. After that, I'm publishing what I have. Dr. Mitchell packed up her documents and left the pub, leaving Marcus alone with the realization that the timeline for revelation had just accelerated dramatically. He immediately called the secure line to Clarence House. Your Majesty, we have a problem. A forensic genealogist has discovered your mother's secret independently. She's planning to publish in 24 hours unless we cooperate with her. There was a long pause. Inspector, it appears our hand is being forced. Yes, Your Majesty. Very well. Call an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. Include everyone from today's meeting, plus representatives from the Palace Press Office. It's time to prepare for full disclosure. Marcus hung up and stared at his pint. In less than 24 hours, one of the biggest royal secrets in modern history would begin to unravel. The next morning, Marcus found himself in the same secure conference room, but this time with twice as many people. Government officials, royal staff, legal experts, and media specialists filled every chair around the large table. The cabinet secretary opened the meeting with characteristic directness. Ladies and gentlemen, we are facing a crisis that could fundamentally alter public perception of the monarchy. In the next few hours, we need to develop a strategy for managing the revelation that the Queen Consort's mother has been alive for the past 30 years. The Palace Press secretary raised her hand. Sir, what's our timeline for disclosure? We have until this evening to coordinate with Dr. Mitchell. After that, she publishes independently. What are our options? Marcus stood up. Ma'am, I believe we have 3 choices. First, we can try to prevent publication through legal means. Second, we can allow Dr. Mitchell to publish independently and then respond reactively. Third, we can work with her to craft a controlled revelation. What do you recommend? The third option. Dr. Mitchell is a respected academic with credentials in forensic genealogy. Her story will be credible whether we cooperate or not. Better to work with her than against her. The constitutional law expert spoke up. Before we decide on media strategy, we need to understand the legal implications. If Mrs. Parker Bowles is legally alive, we may need to address issues of fraud, tax evasion, and identity theft. The Attorney General's representative nodded. We're already researching those issues. It appears that most of her activities over the past 30 years have been technically legal, if irregular. What about the Church of England implications? The Archbishop has been briefed. He's consulting with canon law experts, but preliminary indications are that the marriage between their majesties remains valid under current church law. Marcus felt some relief. At least the core constitutional issues seemed manageable. So what's our strategy? The cabinet secretary asked. The Palace Press secretary outlined a plan that involved coordinating Dr. Mitchell's article with an official statement from Clarence House, followed by a carefully managed interview with the Queen Consort. The key, she said, is to frame this as a story of family sacrifice rather than deception. Mrs. Parker Bowles chose to withdraw from public life to protect her daughter and the monarchy. Will that narrative hold up? If we control the initial framing, yes. The public has sympathy for families who make sacrifices to protect their children. Marcus listened to the discussion with growing amazement. In less than 24 hours, these professionals were crafting a strategy to manage what could have been one of the most damaging royal scandals in history. The meeting lasted 6 hours. By the end, they had a comprehensive plan for revelation, crisis management, and long-term reputation repair. As Marcus left Whitehall that evening, he reflected on how dramatically his life had changed in just 1 week. He had gone from routine royal protection to managing one of the most sensitive secrets in British history. His phone buzzed with another message from Dr. Mitchell. Inspector, I've received your proposal. I accept. Publication tomorrow at 6 a.m., with coordinated palace statement at 6:30 a.m. Thank you for helping make this responsible. Marcus smiled for the first time in days. Maybe, just maybe, they were going to manage this crisis successfully. But, as he walked through the London evening, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Revealing Rosalind's secret would answer some questions, but it would also raise many new ones. The most important question remained: what other secrets was the royal family keeping? The truth unveiled at exactly 6 a.m. on Thursday morning. Dr. Sarah Mitchell's article appeared on the front page of The Guardian under the headline, "The Royal Secret: How Camilla's Mother Disappeared to Save the Monarchy." Marcus Wellington sat in his flat, reading the article on his tablet while his secure phone buzzed constantly with calls from colleagues, superiors, and media outlets. The story was comprehensive, well-researched, and surprisingly sympathetic to the royal family. Dr. Mitchell had crafted the narrative exactly as the crisis management team had hoped. She presented Rosalind Parker Bowles as a devoted mother who had made an extraordinary sacrifice to protect her daughter's future and preserve the stability of the monarchy. The article explained the genealogical complications that had made the deception necessary, the careful planning required to maintain it for 30 years, and the recent decision to reveal the truth voluntarily. At 6:30 a.m., Clarence House released their prepared statement. Her Majesty the Queen Consort confirms that her mother, Mrs. Rosalind Parker Bowles, is alive and has been living privately in Scotland since 1994. This arrangement was made to protect personal family matters and ensure the stability of relationships within the royal family. Her Majesty is grateful for the privacy that has been maintained and looks forward to being reunited publicly with her mother. Marcus's phone rang. The caller ID showed the Cabinet Secretary's office. "Inspector Wellington, I need you at Clarence House immediately. The Queen Consort is giving a live television interview in 2 hours, and she's requested your presence." When Marcus arrived at Clarence House, the scene was controlled chaos. Television crews were setting up equipment, palace staff were coordinating logistics, and security personnel were managing increased crowd control outside the gates. Camilla received Marcus in the same study where they had planned this revelation just days earlier. She appeared calm but tired. "Inspector," she said, "in a few minutes, I'm going to appear on national television and confirm that I've been living a lie for 30 years. I wanted to thank you for helping make this possible. Your Majesty, how are you feeling about the interview?" "Nervous, but relieved. I've been carrying this secret for so long that I had almost forgotten what it felt like to tell the truth." The television interview was conducted by a veteran BBC journalist known for her respectful but thorough approach to royal interviews. Camilla answered questions with remarkable candor about the family connections that had made the deception necessary, her mother's decision to withdraw from public life, and the emotional toll of maintaining the secret. "Your Majesty," the interviewer asked, "some people might say that deceiving the public about your mother's death was wrong, regardless of the reasons." Camilla considered the question carefully. "I understand that perspective," she replied. "But I would ask people to consider what they would do to protect their children. My mother saw a situation where the truth could have prevented me from marrying the man I loved and potentially destabilize the monarchy. She chose to sacrifice her own public existence to prevent that outcome. Do you regret the deception? I regret the necessity of it. But I don't regret protecting my family and the institution of the monarchy." The interview was broadcast live and immediately dominated news coverage worldwide. Initial public reaction was mixed but surprisingly sympathetic. Social media responses ranged from outrage about the deception to admiration for a mother's sacrifice. After the interview, Marcus joined Camilla and her senior staff for a debriefing session. "The initial response seems manageable," the palace press secretary reported. "We're seeing criticism about the deception, but also significant sympathy for the family circumstances that made it necessary." "What about parliamentary reaction?" "The Prime Minister has issued a statement supporting the royal family and emphasizing that no laws were broken. Opposition leaders are calling for transparency, but not demanding any formal investigations." Marcus felt cautiously optimistic. The carefully planned revelation seemed to be working. But then, his secure phone rang with an unknown number. "Inspector Wellington? This is Chief Inspector Davies from Fraud Squad. We need to meet immediately." An hour later, Marcus found himself in another secure conference room, this time at New Scotland Yard. Chief Inspector Davies was accompanied by 2 other fraud investigators and a representative from the Crown Prosecution Service. "Inspector," Davies began, "we've been reviewing the implications of this morning's revelations. We have concerns about potential criminal activity. Marcus felt his optimism evaporate. What kind of concerns? Falsifying death records is a serious offense. Assuming false identity is identity fraud. Avoiding tax obligations is tax evasion. Just because the royal family was involved doesn't make these activities legal. Sir, my understanding is that legal experts have reviewed these issues and determined that no prosecutable offenses occurred. That may have been the conclusion of constitutional lawyers, but it's not the conclusion of criminal law experts. The CPS representative leaned forward. Inspector, we're not saying anyone will definitely be prosecuted, but we need to conduct a formal investigation to determine exactly what laws, if any, were broken. Marcus realized that the careful crisis management might be about to unravel. A criminal investigation would generate new headlines, new questions, and new risks for the royal family. What kind of investigation? Full forensic review of all documents related to Mrs. Parker Bowles' disappearance and assumed identity. Interviews with everyone who participated in the deception. Financial audits to determine if any fraud occurred. How long would such an investigation take? Months, possibly years. Marcus immediately called the secure line to Clarence's house. Within an hour, he was back in the familiar study, briefing Camilla on this new development. Your Majesty, the fraud squad is opening a formal criminal investigation. Camilla sat down heavily. Into what exactly? Potential identity fraud, document falsification, and tax evasion related to your mother's disappearance. I see. What does this mean for us? It means months or years of investigation, ongoing media attention, and the possibility of criminal charges. Camilla was quiet for several minutes. When she finally spoke, her voice was determined. Inspector, I want you to arrange a meeting with my mother. It's time for her to come back to London. Your Majesty, if there's going to be a criminal investigation, she shouldn't face it alone in Scotland. It's time for her to reclaim her identity completely. The next day, Marcus found himself back on a plane to Scotland. This time, the flight was official with full documentation and coordination with Scottish authorities. When they arrived at the cottage, Rosalind was waiting with several suitcases packed. I saw the interview, she said to Camilla as they embraced. You did beautifully. Mother, there are complications. The police are opening a criminal investigation. Rosalind smiled. I've been expecting that for 30 years. I'm ready. The flight back to London was surreal. For the first time in 3 decades, Rosalind Parker Bowles was traveling under her real name, with official documentation as herself. When they landed at RAF Nordholt, a small crowd of photographers had gathered outside the airfield. News of Rosalind's return to London had leaked somehow. As they walked from the aircraft to the waiting cars, Marcus watched Rosalind carefully. She moved with dignity and confidence, showing no sign of fear or regret about ending her long exile. The photographers shouted questions, but Rosalind ignored them completely. When they reached the cars, however, she turned back toward the cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, she said in a clear voice, I am Rosalind Parker Bowles. I have been living quietly in Scotland for 30 years, and now I am home. With that simple statement, she climbed into the car. The media frenzy that followed was intense, but manageable. Rosalind took up residence in a small apartment near Clarence's house, where she could be close to Camilla while maintaining some independence. Over the following weeks, she was interviewed by police investigators, tax authorities, and various legal experts. Marcus was present for most of these interviews as her security officer and witness. What emerged from the investigation was a remarkable story of careful planning and legal sophistication. Rosalind had not actually broken any laws during her disappearance. She had simply allowed people to make assumptions about her death, while carefully avoiding any actions that would constitute fraud. She had lived modestly in Scotland, paying taxes under her assumed name, maintaining minimal financial footprints, and avoiding any benefits or inheritance that would have required her legal death. The most remarkable aspect of this case, the lead fraud investigator told Marcus privately, is how carefully it was planned to avoid actual criminality while achieving the desired result. After 2 months of investigation, the Crown Prosecution Service announced that no charges would be filed. While the deception had been extensive and long-lasting, it had been conducted in a way that technically violated no laws. The announcement was made on a Friday afternoon, the traditional time for releasing news that the government hopes will receive minimal attention. But, by then, public interest in the story had largely moved on to other scandals and crises. Marcus found himself back in Clarence's house the following Monday, providing his final report on the situation. "Your Majesty," he said to Camilla, "the investigation is officially closed. Your mother is free to resume her life without any legal complications. And you, Inspector? How do you feel about everything that's happened?" Marcus considered the question. In 6 weeks, he had gone from routine royal protection to managing one of the most complex family secrets in modern history. The experience had changed his understanding of the monarchy, the nature of truth, and the sometimes necessary complexity of protecting both individuals and institutions. "Your Majesty, I feel honored to have been trusted with something so important to your family, and I feel grateful that we were able to manage this revelation without damaging the monarchy." Camilla smiled. "Inspector, there's something else I need to tell you." Marcus felt a familiar chill. "Yes, Your Majesty? My mother wants to meet with you privately. She has something she wants to say." An hour later, Marcus was sitting with Rosalind in her new London apartment. The flat was small but elegant, decorated with some of the personal items she had brought from Scotland. "Inspector," Rosalind began, "I wanted to thank you personally for everything you've done for my family." "Mrs. Parker Bowles, I was simply doing my job." "No, you were doing much more than your job. You were helping protect something that mattered to people you care about." Rosalind moved to a small desk and pulled out an envelope. "Inspector, there's something I need to give you. Something that Camilla doesn't know about." Marcus felt another surge of concern. "What is it?" "It's a letter, written by someone who knew about my disappearance from the beginning. Someone who helped make it possible." She handed Marcus the envelope. His name was written on the front in elegant handwriting. "Who wrote this?" "Queen Elizabeth II." Marcus felt the world shift again. "The late Queen knew about your disappearance?" "She knew everything, Inspector. She approved it. And she left instructions about what to do if the truth ever came out." Marcus opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper with the unmistakable handwriting of Queen Elizabeth II. "Inspector Wellington," the letter began, "if you are reading this, then circumstances have required the revelation of one of the most sensitive secrets of my reign. I want you to know that the decision to allow Mrs. Parker Bowles to withdraw from public life was made with my full knowledge and approval. The constitutional implications of the genealogical connections within the royal family required careful management. Mrs. Parker Bowles' sacrifice prevented a crisis that could have damaged the monarchy at a critical time. I hope that history will judge this decision as necessary for the preservation of an institution that serves the British people with dedication and integrity. Thank you for your service to the royal family. Elizabeth R." Marcus read the letter twice before looking up at Rosalind. She planned for this moment? Queen Elizabeth planned for everything, Inspector. She knew that secrets like this eventually come out, and she wanted to ensure that when this one did, it would be handled properly. "Why are you showing me this now?" "Because you have become the keeper of this secret. You understand its importance and its implications. The Queen wanted whoever managed this revelation to understand the full context of why it was necessary." Marcus carefully folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. "What should I do with this?" "Keep it safe. Someday, historians will need to understand the complete story of why these decisions were made." As Marcus left Rosalind's apartment that evening, he reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun with a routine flight to Scotland. He had learned that the royal family was capable of maintaining secrets of breathtaking complexity, that sometimes deception was necessary to protect larger truths, and that even queens planned for the revelation of their most sensitive decisions. Walking through London in the early evening, Marcus realized that his role in royal protection had fundamentally changed. He was no longer just a bodyguard or security officer. He had become a guardian of institutional memory, a keeper of secrets that shaped the monarchy itself. His secure phone buzzed with a text message from Deputy Assistant Commissioner Reynolds. "Marcus, report to my office tomorrow morning. New assignment." Marcus smiled. After everything he had experienced in the past 2 months, he was curious about what could possibly constitute a new assignment. When he arrived at Scotland Yard the next morning, Reynolds was waiting with a file folder. "Marcus," she said, How do you feel about working directly with the palace on long-term security planning? What kind of planning? The kind that involves identifying and managing sensitive family matters before they become public crises. Marcus realized they were offering him a new role, not just protecting the royal family from external threats, but helping them navigate the complex internal challenges that came with centuries of history and relationships. Ma'am, are you saying there are other situations like the one we just managed? Reynolds smiled. Marcus, the royal family has been around for 1,000 years. There are always other situations. Marcus accepted the assignment, knowing that his career had taken a turn that would define the rest of his professional life. He would spend his days protecting not just the physical safety of the royal family, but the institutional secrets that kept the monarchy functioning. As he left Reynolds' office with his new assignment folder, Marcus reflected on how much his understanding of royal protection had evolved. It wasn't just about preventing assassinations or managing crowds. It was about protecting the careful balance between public transparency and private necessity that allowed the monarchy to survive in the modern world. 6 months later, Marcus found himself back in the Scottish cottage where this entire adventure had begun. Rosalind had decided to divide her time between London and Scotland, and today was the first time Camilla had been able to visit her mother openly as herself. They sat in the cottage garden, drinking tea and talking about family matters without the weight of 30 years of secrecy. Inspector, Camilla said, do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had handled this differently? Marcus considered the question. Your Majesty, I think you handled it the only way that protected both your family and the monarchy. Sometimes the right decision isn't the simple decision. And sometimes, Rosalind added, the truth is worth waiting for. As Marcus watched mother and daughter together in the afternoon sunlight, he realized that some stories don't have clear endings. The revelation of Rosalind's secret had answered many questions, but it had also raised new ones about the nature of truth, the responsibilities of institutions, and the sacrifices people make for causes larger than themselves. His secure phone buzzed with another message about another sensitive assignment. Marcus read it, smiled, and put the phone away. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he now understood that protecting the royal family meant more than preventing physical harm. It meant protecting the delicate balance that allowed an ancient institution to survive in a modern world. And sometimes, that protection required keeping secrets. Other times, it required revealing them. The art was knowing the difference. Detective Inspector Marcus Wellington had been protecting members of the royal family for 12 years. He thought he had seen everything. Palace scandals, security breaches, protesters, and even assassination attempts. Nothing surprised him anymore. At least, that's what he believed until that Tuesday morning in March 2024. The call came at 5:47 a.m. Marcus was drinking his morning coffee in his small London flat when his secure phone buzzed. The voice on the other end was clipped and professional. Wellington, we need you at RAF Nordholt immediately. The Queen Consort requires protection detail for an unscheduled flight to Scotland. Marcus frowned. Unscheduled flights were unusual. The royal family's movements were typically planned weeks in advance, with every detail carefully coordinated. Something felt off. What's the nature of the trip? Marcus asked, already reaching for his jacket. Need to know basis. Just get there. The line went dead. Marcus had learned not to question orders during his time with the Royal Protection Unit. He grabbed his equipment bag and headed out into the cold London morning. The drive to RAF Nordholt took 45 minutes through early morning traffic. The military airbase sat on the outskirts of London, a place where VIPs could depart without the chaos of commercial airports. When Marcus arrived, he immediately noticed the unusual activity. Ground crews were rushing around a small private jet. Several black Range Rovers sat nearby, their engines running. But what struck him most was the absence of the usual royal protocol. No ceremonial guards, no press, no fanfare. This was meant to be quiet. Marcus showed his credentials to the security checkpoint and was waved through. As he approached the aircraft, he spotted his colleague, Detective Sergeant Sarah Chun, already on the tarmac. Sarah, he called out. What's the situation? Sarah turned toward him, her expression puzzled. Honestly, Marcus, I'm not sure. Got the same call you did. Very hush-hush. They're saying the Queen Consort needs to travel to Scotland urgently, but no one will tell us why. Marcus studied the scene around them. Royal protection was his specialty, and he had a keen eye for details that others might miss. The ground crew seemed nervous. The pilot kept checking his watch. Even the security personnel appeared tense. "Where is she?" Marcus asked. "Still en route. Should be here any moment." As if on cue, a convoy of 3 black vehicles swept onto the tarmac. The middle car flew small royal standards. Marcus and Sarah immediately moved into position, their training taking over. They formed a protective corridor from the vehicles to the aircraft steps. The car doors opened, and several royal staff members emerged first. Then, Camilla, the queen consort, stepped out of the vehicle. Marcus had protected her many times before, but something seemed different today. She appeared anxious, constantly looking over her shoulder. Her usual composed demeanor was replaced by visible tension. "Good morning, Your Majesty," Marcus said with a respectful nod as she passed. Camilla barely acknowledged him. Instead, she hurried toward the aircraft, clutching a small travel bag tightly to her chest. This was unusual. Normally, royal staff handled all luggage. The queen consort never carried her own bags. As they boarded the aircraft, Marcus noticed another anomaly. The passenger manifest listed only Camilla and 2 staff members. For a royal flight, especially to Scotland, this was remarkably small entourage. Usually, there would be private secretaries, ladies-in-waiting, additional security, and various support staff. The aircraft was a Hawker 900 XP, luxurious, but not the typical choice for royal travel. Marcus had expected one of the larger jets from the Royal Squadron. This plane was smaller, more discreet, and capable of landing at smaller airfields. Once everyone was aboard, the pilot began his pre-flight procedures immediately. No waiting for additional passengers or cargo. Marcus sensed urgency in every action. As the plane taxied toward the runway, Marcus tried to piece together what he was observing. In his 12 years of royal protection, he had developed an instinct for when something was not routine. Today, every instinct was screaming that this flight was far from normal. Sarah was seated across the narrow aisle from him. She caught his eye and raised an eyebrow questioningly. Marcus gave a slight shake of his head, indicating his own confusion about the situation. The queen consort sat toward the front of the cabin, separated from Marcus and Sarah by her staff members. She spent the first hour of the flight on her phone, speaking in hushed tones. Marcus couldn't hear the conversations, but her body language suggested stress and concern. About 90 minutes into the flight, one of the staff members approached Marcus. "Inspector Wellington," the man said quietly. "Her Majesty would like to speak with you privately." Marcus unbuckled his seatbelt and followed the staff member forward. Camilla was sitting alone now, staring out the small aircraft window at the countryside passing below. "Your Majesty," Marcus said respectfully. "How may I assist you?" Camilla turned toward him, and Marcus was struck by the worry lines around her eyes. "Inspector, I need to ask you about confidentiality protocols." "Of course, Your Majesty. Everything related to royal protection falls under official secrets legislation. Nothing discussed or observed during my duties is ever disclosed, even if what you observe might seem unusual." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "Your Majesty, my duty is to ensure your safety and security. Everything else remains confidential unless it directly threatens that safety." Camilla nodded slowly. "Good. That's what I needed to hear." She turned back to the window, effectively dismissing him. Marcus returned to his seat, his mind racing. What had she meant by unusual? What was he supposed to observe that might require such specific reassurance about confidentiality? The flight continued northward over the English countryside. Marcus found himself studying every detail around him. The nervous staff members, the unusual routing they seemed to be taking, the fact that air traffic control communications were being conducted in hushed tones between the pilot and someone on the ground. Sarah had fallen asleep across the aisle, but Marcus remained alert. His training had taught him that protection duties never stopped, even during routine travel. But nothing about this felt routine. As they crossed into Scottish airspace, Marcus noticed the pilot beginning descent procedures. They were approaching an airfield that Marcus didn't immediately recognize. He had flown into Scotland many times with various royal family members, usually into Edinburgh or Glasgow airports, sometimes Aberdeen for trips to Balmoral. This airfield was smaller, more remote. Looking out the window, Marcus could see a single runway surrounded by rolling hills and farmland. A few small buildings clustered near what appeared to be the main terminal. This was definitely not a major airport. The landing was smooth, and as they taxied toward the terminal building, Marcus saw a single black car waiting on the tarmac. No other vehicles. No additional security. No local police presence. For a royal arrival, this was unprecedented. The aircraft came to a stop, and the pilot immediately began shutdown procedures. The staff members started gathering their belongings with obvious haste. Camilla remained seated until everyone else was ready to disembark. As they prepared to leave the aircraft, Marcus approached the Queen Consort again. "Your Majesty, what are the security arrangements at our destination?" Camilla looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Inspector, I'm afraid this is where our journey together ends." "I'm sorry, Your Majesty, I don't understand." "You and Sergeant Chin will remain with the aircraft. My staff, and I have private business to attend to." Marcus felt alarm bells going off in his head. Royal protection officers never left their charges unattended, especially in unfamiliar locations. This violated every protocol he had been trained to follow. "Your Majesty, with respect, I cannot allow you to proceed without protection. It's against all established procedures." "Inspector," Camilla's voice became firm. "This is not a request. This is a direct order from a member of the royal family. You will remain with the aircraft." Marcus looked toward Sarah, who had overheard the conversation. Her expression mirrored his own concern and confusion. "Your Majesty," Marcus tried again. "If there's a security threat or some reason why standard procedures cannot be followed, perhaps we can adapt our approach. But I cannot in good conscience allow you to proceed alone." Camilla stepped closer to Marcus, lowering her voice. "Inspector, there are some matters that require absolute privacy. Your presence, though appreciated, would complicate a very delicate situation. I assure you, I will be perfectly safe." "How can you assure that without proper security assessment?" "Because," Camilla paused, choosing her words carefully, "I'm not going somewhere unknown. I'm going home." Marcus felt his confusion deepen. Home. They were in the Scottish countryside, hours from any known royal residence. What did she mean by home? The aircraft door opened, and cool Scottish air filled the cabin. Marcus could see the waiting car more clearly now. It was a simple black sedan, not an armored royal vehicle. The driver stood beside the car, but Marcus couldn't make out any details from this distance. Camilla gathered her small travel bag and moved toward the door. Marcus and Sarah followed, still trying to process what was happening. "Your Majesty," Marcus made one final attempt. "Please reconsider. Allow us to at least assess the security situation before you leave our protection." Camilla turned back to him at the top of the aircraft steps. "Inspector Wellington, in all your years of royal protection, have you ever been asked to forget what you've seen?" "Never, Your Majesty." "Well, today might be that day." With that cryptic comment, she descended the steps. Marcus watched as she walked across the tarmac toward the waiting car. Her staff members followed, but they seemed as uncertain as Marcus felt. When Camilla reached the car, the driver opened the rear door for her. But before getting in, she turned back toward the aircraft. Even from a distance, Marcus could see her watching him and Sarah. She stood there for a long moment, as if weighing a decision. Then, she said something to one of her staff members, who immediately started walking back toward the aircraft. "Now what?" Sarah muttered beside him. The staff member reached the bottom of the aircraft steps. "Inspector Wellington," he called up. "Her Majesty has changed her mind. She would like you to accompany her after all." Marcus felt relief and renewed confusion in equal measure. What about Sergeant Chun? She should remain with the aircraft. Marcus looked at Sarah, who nodded. "Go," she said. "I'll maintain security here." Marcus gathered his equipment bag and descended the steps. As he walked toward the car, his trained eyes automatically began assessing the surrounding area. The airfield was indeed remote, surrounded by open countryside. The nearest town appeared to be several miles away. The terminal building was small and seemed to be minimally staffed. When he reached the car, Camilla was already seated in the back. The driver held the front passenger door open for Marcus. "Inspector," the driver said with a thick Scottish accent, "welcome to Scotland." Marcus slid into the front seat, immediately noting that this was definitely not a royal protection vehicle. No armored plating, no communication equipment, no emergency supplies. Just a standard luxury sedan. As they pulled away from the airfield, Marcus tried to orient himself. The countryside was beautiful but unfamiliar. Rolling hills covered in heather, stone walls dividing fields, and scattered farms dotting the landscape. Where exactly are we heading? Marcus asked the driver. Before the driver could answer, Camilla spoke from the back seat. We're going to see someone I haven't seen in a very long time. Marcus turned slightly in his seat to face her. Your Majesty, if this is a scheduled meeting, why wasn't it coordinated through normal channels? Because, Camilla said quietly, some meetings can't be scheduled through normal channels. They drove in silence for several minutes. Marcus found himself studying every detail of their route, a habit ingrained by years of security training. They were heading generally northeast, into increasingly remote countryside. After about 20 minutes, they turned off the main road onto a smaller lane. The pavement gave way to gravel, and the car began climbing into hills covered with ancient oak trees. Your Majesty, Marcus said, I need to express my concern about proceeding to an unsecured location without proper advance reconnaissance. Your concern is noted, Inspector. But we're almost there now. Almost where? Marcus thought. They seemed to be heading toward nothing but wilderness. Then, around a bend in the gravel road, Marcus saw their destination. A small stone cottage sat in a clearing among the trees. Smoke was rising from the chimney, and well-tended gardens surrounded the building. It looked like something from a fairy tale, completely at odds with royal security protocols. The car came to a stop in front of the cottage. Marcus immediately began his security assessment. Single-story building, multiple windows, only one visible entrance, no other vehicles present, no obvious security measures. Your Majesty, Marcus began, but Camilla was already opening her door. Inspector, I need you to wait in the car. Absolutely not. If you're going inside, I'm going with you. Camilla paused, half out of the car. Inspector, what I'm about to do, it's not official royal business. It's personal. Very personal. Your presence inside would be inappropriate. Your Majesty, personal or not, my duty is to ensure your safety. I cannot allow you to enter an unsecured building alone. Marcus could see the internal struggle playing out on Camilla's face. Protocol demanded his protection, but, clearly, she wanted privacy for whatever was about to happen. Finally, she made a decision. Very well. You may accompany me. But, Inspector, what you see and hear inside this cottage must never be repeated. Not to your superiors, not to your colleagues, not to anyone. Do I have your word? Marcus felt the weight of the moment. He was being asked to agree to something before knowing what it was. This violated his training and his instincts. But the alternative was allowing the Queen Consort to proceed alone into an unknown situation. Your Majesty, I give you my word that I will maintain absolute confidentiality about anything personal or private I may witness. However, I cannot compromise your safety for privacy concerns. Fair enough, Camilla said. Come with me. They approached the cottage together. Marcus noted the sturdy construction, the well-maintained exterior, the carefully tended garden. Someone lived here year-round and took pride in their home. Before they reached the door, it opened. An elderly woman appeared in the doorway, and Marcus immediately understood why this meeting required such secrecy. The woman was clearly in her 70s, with silver hair pulled back in a simple bun. She wore a practical sweater and skirt, with muddy boots that suggested she had been working in the garden. But what struck Marcus most was her face. She had Camilla's eyes, the same distinctive shape, the same intelligent expression. And when she smiled at the sight of Camilla, Marcus saw the same smile he had observed countless times during royal engagements. Camilla, the woman said softly. You came. Hello, mother, Camilla replied. Marcus felt the world shift around him. Mother? This was impossible. Camilla's mother, Rosalind Cubitt, had died in 1994. Marcus knew the royal family histories by heart. It was part of his job. But here stood a woman who was unmistakably related to Camilla, calling her daughter, and being called mother in return. The two women embraced on the cottage doorstep, and Marcus realized he was witnessing something that could shake the foundations of the British royal family. His mind raced through the possibilities. Was this an imposter? Some elaborate hoax? Or had he stumbled onto one of the biggest secrets in modern royal history? As Camilla and the elderly woman separated from their embrace, both turned to look at Marcus. He realized they were waiting for some kind of reaction from him. "Inspector," Camilla said carefully, "I'd like you to meet my mother, Rosalind Parker Bowles." The woman extended her hand to Marcus. "Inspector Wellington, I presume? Camilla has told me about your excellent service to the royal family." Marcus shook her hand automatically, his mind still reeling. The woman's grip was firm, her manner confident. She spoke with the educated accent of the British upper class, the same accent Marcus had heard from Camilla thousands of times. How is this possible?" Marcus found himself asking. Camilla exchanged a look with her mother. "Perhaps we should go inside," she said. "This is going to require some explanation." As they entered the cottage, Marcus felt like he was walking into an alternate reality. The interior was cozy and comfortable, filled with antique furniture and family photographs. His eyes immediately went to the photographs. There, arranged on tables and hanging on walls, was a visual history that contradicted everything Marcus thought he knew. Pictures of Camilla as a child with this woman. Wedding photos from Camilla's first marriage, with this woman prominently featured. Holiday gatherings, birthday celebrations, family milestones, all featuring a woman who was supposed to have been dead for 30 years. Marcus sank into a chair, trying to process what he was seeing. "I don't understand," he said finally. Camilla sat across from him while her mother moved toward the kitchen. "Inspector, what I'm about to tell you is known to perhaps 6 people in the entire world. My mother didn't die in 1994. She chose to disappear." "Chose to disappear? What?" "Because," Rosalind called from the kitchen where she was preparing tea, "sometimes the only way to protect your family is to remove yourself from the equation." Marcus looked between the two women. "Protection from what?" Camilla leaned forward. "Inspector, you've been in royal protection long enough to understand that being connected to the royal family can be dangerous. Not just from external threats, but from internal politics and public scrutiny. But your mother was already connected to royal circles through your father's family." "Yes," Rosalind said, returning with a tea tray. "But in 1994, Camilla's relationship with Charles was becoming public knowledge. The press was digging into every aspect of her life, including her family background." Marcus was beginning to understand. They found something they weren't supposed to find. They found evidence of connections that went much deeper than anyone knew, Camilla said. Connections that could have caused significant embarrassment to the crown. Rosalind poured tea with steady hands. "Inspector, my family's history with the royal family goes back much further than most people know. There were indiscretions in previous generations that were never supposed to come to light." "What kind of indiscretions?" Camilla and her mother exchanged another look. "The kind that could have prevented Charles and me from ever marrying," Camilla said quietly. Marcus felt another piece of the puzzle click into place. "You're talking about bloodline connections." "We're talking about connections that would have made our marriage impossible under Church of England law," Rosalind confirmed. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. If Camilla and Charles were more closely related than publicly known, their marriage would have required special dispensation that might not have been granted. The constitutional crisis alone would have been enormous. "So you faked your death to prevent the information from coming out?" "I didn't fake my death," Rosalind corrected. "I simply withdrew from public life very thoroughly. A few key records were altered. Some death notices were published in papers that didn't fact-check carefully. And, gradually, the official story became that I had died." "But how did you maintain this deception for 30 years?" "Very carefully," Camilla said. "And with help from people who understood what was at stake." Marcus realized the enormity of what he was hearing. This wasn't just a personal family secret. This was a state secret that could affect the legitimacy of the current royal family. Who else knows? Charles knows, obviously. The Archbishop of Canterbury, who performed our marriage ceremony. One senior civil servant in the cabinet office. My brother, who helped arrange this cottage. And now you. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He was now part of one of the most sensitive secrets in modern British history. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. "Because," Camilla said, "things are changing. There are people who suspect that my mother didn't actually die. Journalists, historians, genealogy researchers with too much time and too many resources. We're concerned that the truth might come out in a way that we can't control. And if it does? If it comes out badly, Rosalind said, it could destabilize the monarchy at a time when it can least afford instability. Marcus understood. The royal family was still dealing with the aftermath of Queen Elizabeth's death, King Charles's coronation, and various other ongoing challenges. A revelation about hidden bloodlines and fake deaths could be catastrophic. What do you want from me? We want your advice, Camilla said. You understand royal security better than almost anyone. If this secret is going to come out, how do we manage it? How do we control the narrative? Marcus set down his teacup, his mind racing through possibilities. This was far beyond normal royal protection duties. This was crisis management at the highest level. The first question, he said slowly, is whether you want to continue hiding this, or whether you want to reveal it on your own terms. What would you recommend? Marcus studied the two women. Camilla, the queen consort, who had already faced enormous public scrutiny throughout her life, and Rosalind, who had sacrificed 3 decades of normal family life to protect her daughter's future. I think, Marcus said carefully, that secrets this big have a way of coming out eventually. The only question is whether you control how and when. Mother and daughter looked at each other. Marcus could see the same thought process happening in both their minds. If we were to reveal this, Camilla said, how would we do it? Very carefully, Marcus replied. With full coordination between the palace, the cabinet office, and the Archbishop of Canterbury. You'd need a strategy for managing both the media and the legal implications. Legal implications? If your mother is legally alive, there could be issues with inheritance, property ownership, tax obligations. 30 years of official non-existence creates complications. Rosalind nodded. I've been thinking about that myself. I've been living quite simply here, but there are financial matters that have been irregular for decades. Marcus realized they were asking him to help plan one of the most sensitive revelations in royal history. The detective in him was fascinated. The royal protection officer in him was terrified. This decision can't be made today, he said finally. This requires consultation with legal experts, constitutional scholars, and senior government officials. We know, Camilla said. But we needed to start somewhere. And we needed someone we trust to help us think through the implications. Marcus looked around the cozy cottage, at the photographs documenting 30 years of secret family gatherings, at 2 women who had managed to maintain one of the most remarkable deceptions in modern history. Your Majesty, he said, I'm honored by your trust. But I have to ask, why now? Why reveal this now, after 30 years? Camilla was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but determined. Because I'm 76 years old, Inspector. And I'm tired of living a lie.